Real Estate, Daniel, album review, let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest album from Real Estate, New Jersey, indie rock and dream pop band. As a matter of fact, the last few years or so, they've become pretty much go-tos in modern dream pop. And to an extent, I do get it, even though my history with the band has been a little spotty. I've never, ever been into their self-titled debut album. I just thought it was just way too wishy-washy, too jammy, too breezy. This is just not my kind of dream pop album, but with their next album, Days, I instantly thought that they were doing things a lot more interesting. For one, they had a lot better production this time around, and I cannot stress that enough. This thing sounded night and day different than their debut. Plus, the jams were classier, and their songwriting was immaculate, so much more interesting than their debut. Now, shortly after they released their Atlas album, which a lot of people praise, a lot of people think it's their best work, but for me, I've never been that into it. I've never been that excited by the album. A lot of the jams on this thing, a lot of the more, breezy, fluid tracks are just so boring. And yes, there are one and two really good tracks on there, but overall, I wasn't here for it. I wasn't really wrapped up in the music of Real Estate, which is why I was completely shocked to find out that I really liked their In Mind album. And I know that's a bit of a hot take, because this is like their poppy album. This is their sweet and tender dream pop album, and a lot of this album is a lot more hook driven. There are a lot less jams, so to speak, and a lot of the songwriting here is a lot more direct, and I liked that at the time. Some of my favorite Real Estate tracks are on there, like Darling, Holding Pattern as well. I thought that honestly Real Estate had finally gotten on a track that I can understand and I can appreciate, and I was excited to see what they would do next. And then they put out their Main Thing album, which is, I think it's their worst album, even more so than their debut, which I really was not into. This was Real Estate going too far for that indie sound, so much so that I actually missed parts of Days and Atlas. So much so that a year later, when they announced the accompanying Half a Human EP, my thoughts were low. My hype was so low. And I found myself once again kind of shocked when it came out, because the 5 or 6 tracks that we got on that EP or mini album, whatever you want to call it, is so much better than the Main Thing. Every track on there was so much more interesting. So I guess you can say that I've been a little all over the place on my thoughts on Real Estate. Now, leading up to this new album, I was curious to see what direction they were going in, and the singles for the most part were interesting, and it's just okay. It's an okay album from Real Estate. I mean, take for example Somebody New, which starts this album off. I will say this about this album. When they focus, Real Estate definitely still have plenty to offer in modern dream pop, and this intro is great. It is gorgeous. It's definitely sort of rustic with the strummed out riff that we get here. However, it's still very breezy, very dreamy. It's just full of so much love and life and sweet hooks and memorable lyrics. It's honestly perfect for a spring day. It reminds me a lot of their early stuff, just a little bit more tuneful. And there's just a sense of longing here that I can't say no to. Honestly, this is a sound that personally I really do enjoy from Real Estate. For another really great folky stripped down track from the band, look no further than Haunted World. This almost gives me like a Woods vibes. It's a charming little track, and it is very short, but it's very sweet on the ears, very memorable. It's super catchy. I love the chorus, and while not, the same sort of jammy, much more fluid material like their earlier stuff was, this still has that same very modern, chilled out flair to it. And there is a sincerity to this track that is just really nice. Flowers is just another really great medium of their sound. It's got a determined strummed riff and a really instantaneous, very colorful hook. It's probably one of the more streamlined tracks here, and I'm all for it. Because of that, the songwriting seems a lot more direct, which is something I've always appreciated. Plus the little instrumental jam that we get here, it's nice. But once again, consistency for me is a big issue here, and when things get bad, I find myself pining for their early days. Like Water Underground, this was one of the earliest singles, might have been the first single dropped from this album, and do not sign me up for this. This is awful. I mean, the songwriting on this album is pretty solid overall, but I don't know what happened here because this is really pathetic. There's a difference between a breezy, very springy, sort of chilled out, laid back track and being lazy. This is being lazy. I don't know, that's just way too boring for me. Interior isn't much better. God, I hear this and I'm like, come on guys, we are past this. This sounds like a who's who of modern indie that wants to sound a little rustic. And it's so uninspired. It's just so phoned in, and Martin's vocal performance on this track is way too stoned. And at 4 minutes, it's one of the longest tracks here, and it is just so boring. It's honestly a real trek to get through. Freeze Brain isn't much easier. I have a lot of the same feelings on this track, now with dual vocals. And honestly, I don't like this much better. It's very carefree, but it's like really lazy as well. I like some laid-back slacker vibes, but this is just boring. And what really annoys me about this track is there are moments that sounds like Real Estate are getting their shit together, but nothing comes of it. Like, I'm not stoned listening to this track, but I feel it in the worst way. And Victoria is just such a shot in the gut. I mean, I actually thought the alternative country vibes of this track were really classy and well done. Now, I've never been that big of a fan of Alex Bleeker's vocals compared to Martin's, but like, this is a no-go from me. It's truly, as far as Alex's performances goes, this is one of his worst. It's bad, and I do really like the twanging guitars and the breezy riff, but come on. It's just a very okay album from Real Estate. This is not their best, and it is far from their worst. Say No More, though. I needed a track like this. This is what I needed to a T. God, I mean, like, not every one of their tracks has to be as upbeat as this, but hearing them put a little passion and heart in, that's what I needed, baby. Not to mention, they do all of this while remaining, upbeat and peppy here, but just as laid back. It's a great sound. It almost reminds me of, like, some Beach Fossils, and I really love the guitar solo here. We get actually a handful of really great solos throughout this record. I have a lot of the same feelings on Airdrop. I mean, once again, they are playing with a lot more heart and dedication. It is so charming, and the lush synth backdrop is really, really nice. This is a great feel-good track from Real Estate, and it does so with them, leaning into that indie rock sound a little bit more. And you know what? That's not something that always comes off pretty, and I'm happy that it did here. And Market Street might be the best deep cut of the bunch. I love the summery riff, and Martin's vocals might be his best. Like, I truly feel like overall, this is the band's most sincere performance on this track. Watch that. Like, overall, I feel like this is the band's most sincere performance on this album. And I do really like the guitar solo once again, which is pretty gnarly for a dream pop track. I like it, though. But then we get You Are Here as a finale, and I feel like we're repeating ourselves. I mean, it's okay. I mean, I don't think it's the worst track here. I think it's far from it. I actually really like the very loose, free-spirited feeling of this track. And to start this track off, I actually think there's some interesting ideas, but over 6 minutes, it doesn't go anywhere. It just nothing happens. Not enough new, I should say. This album's just okay. It's not the worst Real Estate album. It's far from the best Real Estate album. For a more summery, sort of like almost like folky inspired at points album, it's not that bad. When they're focused, they can pull it off and actually pull off some really solid, upbeat, jangly indie tunes that I really enjoy. I just wish that they would just get their crap together and figure out on a sound that works from album to album, that's so that they can grow, because right now I feel like they're just kind of meandering again. I'm feeling a light 6 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.